Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing abrupt climate change, abrupt climate collapse, environmental destruction, sixth mass extinction. I keep wanting to talk about math extinction, and I like math, so I don't want it to go extinct either. Excuse me. I'm going to start reading some articles. I actually had a comment here I wanted to read. Something tells me this video might end up being long because I have a lot more to read. There's a lot more I want to read than I think I might be able to fit in this video. I just had to relate a very funny comment I got from someone saying that they couldn't watch my videos anymore because they were too long and I was reading cherry-picked articles and that I looked like I was living in a basement with no shower or something. I don't know. It was like a really hilarious comment. I found it very humorous. But I don't know how my articles could be. If I did 3 or 4 videos a day, reading probably 3 or 4 articles each video, I still probably wouldn't be able to cover all the climate change news that comes at me every single day. I mean, it's an onslaught of information. So no cherry picking necessary. But if you want to, send me your Danish Meteorological Institute, data or whatever, go for it. Anyways, I'm going to read a comment from Carl Rosengrant. In the comment, she also said my articles were badly read. So apparently I'm a terrible reader too. So hilarious. Anyways, Carl says, I think it just got darker in here. Excuse me. Let me go turn a light on. Carl says, I have a bunch of solutions. Many other people do too. The main issue is consumption, right? The more we consume, the higher our standard of living. The more money we make, the more we can and probably do consume. This makes sense to everyone who studies the problem for even just a few hours. The industrial economy is what is screwing up this planet, wouldn't you say? The global industrial economy also gives us what we think we need to live. From toothpaste to central forced air heating, we all have been trained of our society, or our society evolved, to consume what we do. We have grown accustomed to consuming what we do and living the lives we do. We, as members of the industrial societies, have been tunneled into thinking that to live comfortably, we must all get jobs, usually very specialized jobs that basically exploit us, or most of us. With these jobs, we rent an apartment or pay interest on a house loan at a rate which consumes about 1/4 to 1/2 of our every working day. And we are led to believe that we must buy expensive cars and make monthly payments which eat up more of the green paper fruits of our working day. We must have expensive, complicated, predatory healthcare, which grabs more of those green paper yummies. At the end of the day, we may have half an hour of pay left. It's a treadmill most of us are on until they are shuffled off to a large, expensive rooming house with a bunch of other spent workers. Occasionally, our overworked kids stop by for a visit. When energy was cheap and the empire was young, costs were relatively low. A single person could support a modern life for their wife and kids. Time-saving devices that used energy became all the rage as people believed that industrial society had finally brought us into a life of leisure, security, and happiness. Look at any 1950s movie and you see this pervasive view. Even today, you will find many who still hold on to that perspective and view. To them, they all see the problems in society as impediments to regaining that peak industrial era rather than these problems as a result of that era. Most today realize that industrialism not only is killing the planet, but is also setting up an unequal distribution of wealth to a degree never before imagined. This, of course, leads to civil unrest, which leads to police states, and so on and so forth. So what I am proposing is take a basic look at your life and how you live it. Is there any other way to live? Is there a way to live life where you aren't enslaved to the global industrial system? Sure there is. The majority of people on the planet live that way already. 1/7 of the world population only needs $100 per year to eke out an existence. Obviously, they either use barter or gift to get what they need, or they themselves produce what they need. They are what is referred to among the transition town crowd as producers, as opposed to consumers. Our ancestors were almost all producers, but today we're mostly all consumers. Most of the people who live low consumption lifestyles in the world also live in mud huts or the equivalent. Most people who have grown up in industrial society do not want to live in a mud hut. However, they certainly don't. So is there a way to be primarily a producer instead of a consumer and still live a comfortable life? The answer is yes. Exclamation point. People are doing it now. I am doing it now. I used to be a consumer of electricity, but now I live off the grid. I used to use fossil fuel to heat my big energy inefficient house. Now I use one cord of mostly already dead wood to heat my tiny, well-insulated house. I'm not adding any additional carbon to the atmosphere, but I still stay warm in the winter. In fact, I only have to spend about 1 day a year to cut, split, and stack my yearly heating fuel. I used to spend thousands of dollars a year, which meant I had to work a lot harder to stay warm than I do now. If our great-grandparents knew about wafati houses or papercrete insulation or hugelkultur or no-till farming methods, they would not have had to work nearly as hard as they did. If they knew how to make a rocket mass heater, they could have reduced the amount of wood they needed by up to 90%, and they would have woken up each morning to a warm house. Permaculture, modern homesteading, traditional skills, and networking with neighbors is all that is needed to escape the industrial trap and mitigate climate change. The good news is that once we are set up, we don't have to work nearly as hard to make a comfortable living. If people knew this, then we could go a long way towards solving the climate change problem, and even if we didn't, we ourselves would be far more able to survive societal collapses or environmental disasters. We can do this with or without help from the demons of capitalism. It's a win-win for all except the 1% of the richest. Start by learning about permaculture. It's a whole new way of seeing the world where we as humans are part of an integral component in nature. The core principle of permaculture is to learn how to work with nature and Mother Earth, as opposed to what we are doing now, which is thinking of ourselves as somehow above nature and in control of it. Here's a great short film about the restorative power of permaculture. It is totally possible to regreen deserts, which will result in carbon being sequestered in the soil to the tune of about 6 tons per acre per year, as peer-reviewed studies have shown. I'm working on a book title about this. The title is "Why Work So Hard When You Can Help Save the Planet Instead?" And that's the end of that comment. I wholeheartedly support these ideas, and thank you, Carl, for that great, insightful comment. And I love the title of your book, "Why Work So Hard When You Can Help Save the Planet?" I said, indeed, like living simply and living cheaply and living close to nature is actually way easier and obviously cheaper. You don't need as much stuff if you don't need as much stuff. See how that works? You just have to throw off the shackles of brainwashing that you need all this stuff, that you need, a new shirt or a new hat or new shoes or a new, whatever it is, something new to tickle your fancy. A new jacket, a new, everything new. You need to replace things that aren't, used up yet. You have to have a closet full of things that you wear once a year, et cetera, et cetera. You don't need all those things, so why bother? Is my question to the world. Moving on. I'm going to read something from The Guardian. Humans are just 0.01% of all life, but have destroyed 83% of wild mammals. Study. This is from Monday. Groundbreaking assessment of all life on Earth reveals humanity's surprising tiny part in it, as well as our disproportionate impact. Humankind is revealed as simultaneously insignificant and utterly dominant in the grand scheme of life on Earth by a groundbreaking new assessment of all life on the planet. The world's 7.6 billion people represent just 0.01% of all living things, according to the study. Yet since the dawn of civilization, humanity has caused the loss of 83% of all wild mammals and half of plants, while livestock kept by humans abounds. The new work is the first comprehensive estimate of the weight of every class of living creature and overturns some long-held assumptions. Bacteria are indeed a major life form, 13% of everything, but plants overshadow everything, representing 82% of all living matter. All other creatures, from insects to fungi to fish and animals, make up just 5% of the world's biomass. Another surprise is that the teeming life revealed in the oceans by the recent BBC television series Blue Planet 2 turns out to represent just 1% of all biomass. The vast majority of life is land-based, and a large chunk, an eighth, is bacteria buried deep below the surface, which I had no idea about. I was shocked to find there wasn't already a comprehensive, holistic estimate of all the different components of biomass, said Professor Ron Milo at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel, who led the work, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. I would hope this gives people a perspective on the very dominant role that our humanity now plays, he said, adding that he now chooses to eat less meat due to the huge environmental impact of livestock. The transformation of the planet by human activity has led scientists to the brink of declaring a new geological era, the Anthropocene. They're on the brink, really? I thought was already a done deal. One suggested marker for this change are the bones of the domestic chicken, now ubiquitous across the globe. The new work reveals that farmed poultry today makes up 70% of all birds on the planet. Wow, with just 30% being wild. The picture is even more stark for mammals. 60% of all mammals on Earth are livestock, mostly cattle and pigs. 36% are human, and just 4% are wild animals. It's pretty staggering, said Milo. In wildlife films, we see flocks of birds of every kind in vast amounts, and then when we did the analysis, we found there are far more domesticated birds. The destruction of wild habitat for farming, logging, and development has resulted in the start of what many scientists consider the sixth mass extinction of life to occur in the Earth's 4 billion year history. About half the Earth's animals are thought to have been lost in the last 50 years. But the comparison of the new estimates with those for the time before humans became farmers and the Industrial Revolution began reveal the full extent of the huge decline. Just 1/6 of wild mammals, from mice to elephants, remain, surprising even the scientists. 1/6. In the oceans, 3 centuries of whaling has left just 1/5 of marine mammals in the oceans. It is definitely striking our disproportionate place on Earth, said Milo. When I do a puzzle with my daughters, there is usually an elephant next to a giraffe next to a rhino. But if I was trying to give them a more realistic sense of the world, it would be a cow next to a cow next to a cow and then a chicken. Despite humanity's supremacy, in weight terms, Homo sapiens is puny. Viruses alone have a combined weight 3 times that of humans, as do worms. Fish are 12 times greater than people, and fungi 200 times as large. It's a lot of fungi. But our impact on the natural world remains immense, said Milo, particularly in what we choose to eat. Our dietary choices have a vast effect on the habitats of animals, plants, and other organisms. I would hope people would take this work as part of the worldview of how they consume, he said. I have not become vegetarian, but I do take environmental impact into my decision making. So it helps me think, do I want to choose beef or poultry or use tofu instead? The researchers calculated the biomass estimates using data from hundreds of studies, which often use modern techniques such as satellite remote sensing that can scan great areas and gene sequencing that can unravel the myriad organisms in the microscopic world. They started by assessing the biomass of the class of organisms, and then they determined which environments such life could live in across the world to create a global total. They used carbon as the key measure and found all life contains 550 billion tons of the element. Carbon is, life-giving element and gas. The researchers acknowledge that substantial uncertainties remain in the particular estimates, especially for bacteria deep underground, but say the work presents a useful overview. Paul Falkowski at Rutgers University in the US, and not part of the research team, said, the study is, to my knowledge, the first comprehensive analysis of the biomass distribution of all organisms, including viruses on Earth. There are two major takeaways from this paper, he said. First, humans are extremely efficient in exploiting natural resources. Humans have culled, and in some cases, eradicated wild mammals for food or pleasure in virtually all continents. Second, the biomass of terrestrial plants overwhelmingly dominates on a global scale, and most of that biomass is in the form of wood. We'll link this below. And quickly going to some political news from the left side of the spectrum. Democrats' anti-corruption proposals applauded as actual plan to drain the swamp. This is from Truth Out. And what dozens of progressive groups hailed as a first good step toward eradicating the rampant corruption that has infected both major political parties and flourished under President Donald Trump, congressional Democrats on Monday rolled out a series of pro-democracy proposals aimed at enhancing voter rights, curbing the influence of corporate lobbyists, and ending the scourge of unaccountable dark money unleashed by Citizens United. Where is the climate change in this platform? I mean, I know they're talking about draining the swamp, but climate change should be, in my humble opinion, the key. Mitigating climate change should be the key policy platform of every single party in the United States and or the world, if we were actually going to be serious or take this seriously. As serious as the problem as it is. I said serious, not Siri. President Donald Trump is battering at the foundation of our democracy, but that foundation was eroded badly long before Trump's election. 'Tis true. Robert Weissman, president of the Public Citizen, said in a statement endorsing the proposals on Monday. We need a full-fledged democracy rescue program, which is exactly what the Better Deal for Our Democracy provides. We need this package, all of it, to unrig a political system that is working for corporations and the super rich. Officially unveiled during a press conference on Monday by House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Representative Pramila Jayapal, and other Democratic lawmakers. The Better Deal for Our Democracy, just one plank of the Democratic Party's broader 2018 platform, aims to empower the American voter by restoring protections gutted by the GOP in recent years and putting an end to partisan gerrymandering, strengthen our nation's ethics laws by barring deep-pocketed lobbyists from attempting to trade campaign cash for access and influence, and fix our broken campaign finance system by overturning Citizens United and increasing the power of small donors. Applauding the Democratic Party's proposed solution as a good start toward confronting the widespread abuse of lax campaign finance system and actually draining the swamp of corruption that Trump has only made worse, patriotic millionaires chair Morris Pearl argued that the fact these proposals are even necessary shows just how low the standards for moral authority in Washington have sunk in the last 2 years. This guy chairs something called Patriotic Millionaires. Okay. I smell some bullshit. Anyways, the American people did not vote to allow government officials to get rich by selling access to government to the highest bidders, Pearl said. The Democrats' slate of proposals come as polling data continues to show that Americans strongly support robust campaign finance reform efforts to curb the influence of the few big interests that dictate government policy. So what this is basically is Democrats realizing that they need to have a party platform that kind of looks like Bernie, but maybe doesn't go all the way. But they need to get voters back. I see this as a ruse by establishment Democrats to try and make themselves look progressive. But anyways, we'll see what happens with what is this called? Better deal for our democracy. I don't know. This just sounds like weak sauce to me. But the Democrats, blah, blah, blah. Okay. They also come as the Trump administration's open corruption, with budget chief Mick Mulvaney serving it as just one of the many egregious examples, has called attention to the pay-for-play norms that have dominated Washington for decades. The system is broken in numerous ways, and only through bold leadership and strong practical systemic reforms can we begin to repair our democracy and make it again something that Americans believe in and depend on. Lisa Gilbert, Public Citizen's Vice President of Legislative Affairs, said in a statement, if this package passes, cronyism, corruption, and far too much special interest money in our system will no longer be the norm. Well, let's hope. Let's hope and pray this is actually gets something done. I want it to be so. Although something that is sponsored by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, I don't give it a whole lot of hope, but we'll see how this goes. Moving on, San Francisco may ban single-use plastic straws. Hooray. San Francisco is considering legislation that would ban merchants from providing customers with single-use plastic straws, an ocean pollutant that environmentalists say poses serious health risks to marine life. The proposed legislation, introduced Tuesday by Supervisor Katie Tang, prohibits the distribution and sale of not only single-use plastic straws, but also plastic stir sticks, plastic toothpicks, and plastic splash sticks anywhere in the city. Tang asserts that more than 1 million plastic straws are discarded daily in San Francisco, an amount that surpasses the city's population. Straws and other small pieces of plastic are among the most frequently littered items, advocates for straw bans say, and they easily make their way to the ocean when washed down storm drains. Because of their size and plastic composition, plastic straws typically cannot be recycled. Here in San Francisco, this is quite literally the last plastic straw. Tang said Tuesday, we need to step up and do something about our wasteful daily habits when there are other alternatives. Many San Francisco food and beverage businesses are already on board despite the higher cost of the paper straws. I'm in support of the plastic straw ban because it will be so much better for the environment, said Lauren Crabb, co-founder of the city's popular Andytown Coffee Roasters. At Andytown, we were actually in the process of phasing out plastic straws already, so the legislation is not disruptive for us at all. We're switching to the most durable paper straws we can find, and also selling very affordable metal straws for these slow drinkers who need a longer lasting material, likely by the end of June, she said. The co-owner of Sightglass, another well-trafficked coffee outpost in San Francisco, also stood by the proposal. We've always offered fully compostable straws produced from plants, so this legislation definitely aligns with our business practices, owner Jared Morrison said. Tang noted that Surfrider Foundation's San Francisco chapter has also started working with more than 100 businesses in the city to help them phase out plastic straws. The danger of plastic straws may be among the more well-known threats to marine life. An agonizing video from 2015 of scientists spending nearly 10 minutes removing a plastic straw from a sea turtle's nostril has more than 24 million views on YouTube. That turtle has since become an unofficial mascot for the anti-plastics pollution movement. Similar legislation already exists in California cities of San Luis Obispo, did not know that, and Davis did not know that. San Francisco Chronicle noted similar prohibitions are scheduled to kick in Malibu and Seattle this summer. Awesome, because I hate straws. They're terrible. The problem is, though, is that, boo, plastic straws, but like, every single thing in a grocery store that you buy, or almost in any store, is, wrapped 3 times in plastic, and, just plastic is everywhere. And finishing up this video, I'm going to read, people can't stop talking about this brilliant National Geographic cover. If you all haven't seen this cover of like, it's like a plastic bag floating in the ocean. It looks like an iceberg, where only, you know, a tip of the bag is sticking out of the water, and there's just, and then there's the larger part underneath. You get it. National Geographic has its fair share of affecting, enduring covers like 1985's Afghan Girl, arguably the publication's most famous image. For its June 2018 cover and part of its Planet or Plastic initiative, the magazine published a cover that's been widely shared on the internet and described as dire and brilliant. Created by Mexican artist Jorge Gamboa, the photo illustration features a plastic bag partially submerged in the ocean, suggesting the world's plastic pollution problem is just the tip of the iceberg. Gamboa had submitted the artwork titled Iceberg Plastico to Bolivia's biennial, oh, I hate when this happens, Bolivia's Biennial of Poster in 2017, where it won first place in the political and social posters category. Now gracing National Geographic, the artwork is set to become iconic. And that's it, because there's just a bunch of tweets about it. I actually thought this was going to be more article. There was an article about, maybe I'll read this. I tried it. There's another website, news.com.au, but it kept, I think this website has spam in it. Let's see. The cover was praised by social media users, applauding the publication for focusing on one of the biggest environmental issues of our time. Brilliant, depressing image on the cover of Nat Geo, wrote one Twitter user. The latest edition of the magazine is dedicated to the Earth's plastic consumption and is filled with striking images and infographics that show the immense scale of plastic pollution plaguing our planet. Okay, I'm going to try and link this article below so y'all can see this, like a bird wrapping plastic, and it's alive. As a small part of addressing the problem, the magazine has committed to delivering its issues in paper wrappers rather than plastic wrappers moving forward. Thank you, National Geographic. 1 million plastic bottles are bought every minute around the globe, and most of them end up in landfill, where they take a significant time to break down, or in the ocean, where they kill marine life. If it's not bottles, it's plastic bags and other plastic-based packaging that can find its way into our waterways and harm wildlife. Some experts have warned that the plastic crisis is as bad as climate change. I would argue that it is all part of the problem. A report by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, launched last year at the World Economic Forum, found the equivalent of a garbage truck worth of plastic bottles was being dumped into the ocean every minute. The ocean is expected to contain 1 ton of plastic for every 3 tons of fish by 2025. And by 2050, more plastics than fish by weight, the report stated. I'm having a hard time finishing this video, sorry. About 150 million tons of plastic are already floating in our oceans, with an additional 8 million tons entering the water each year. Often that plastic ends up killing precious marine wildlife. Presence of plastic in the ocean and oceans is one of the greatest threats to the conservation of wildlife throughout the world, as many animals are trapped in the trash or ingest large quantities of plastics that end up causing their death. A Spanish wildlife official said earlier this year, after a juvenile sperm whale washed ashore with nearly 30 kilograms of plastic in its stomach. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you want to support this channel, you can do so with the links below. I hope to be back tomorrow with another video. Until next time, peace.